Trackmania Turbo, a pretty cotton-picking arcade game that can make for some very cotton-picking fun and big wrecks, which makes for a fun game. This is one of the free games this month if you have PlayStation Plus. There's Mad Max as well, which is based on the movie, and then there's other miscellaneous small games I've never heard of. But at least in my opinion, for an overall good game, like if you're not necessarily a fan of the Mad Max movie or if you don't know what the other games are, this is probably your best bet in terms of free games for a while. Obviously, I'm more biased towards racing games by default, but from what I've played so far, this game is pretty cop-picking good. So I'll go ahead and review it because it's about as good of a free game as you're going to get, or at least recently. Trackmania Turbo is made by Ubisoft, the same company that made The Crew, and those both involve cars, but beyond that, they're not that similar. Other than the fact of you can do some pretty crazy challenges with it. The Crew, as I've mentioned in a lot of videos, honestly, has had many a glitch, and many a glitch in a way that makes for good challenges. Glitches are completely unrealistic, but they're still fun to have. This game, in that sense, is always a glitch, and I don't mean that in a bad way. There can be good glitches, because that makes the game unrealistic, and well, this game's meant to be unrealistic. There's only 3 buttons. There's gas, brake, and turn. That's literally it. There's a button to restart your lap too, and like reset to the checkpoint and all that, but buttons in terms of what you use. Race by race, gas, brake, turn. As simple as it gets for a racing game. But it's still actually fun and challenging, because with there only being very few buttons, even pretty early on in the game, it gets you to the point of where you need to drive pretty cotton-picking precise. Like, this was one of actually the very first levels, I think on the very first set of events. And we'll just look at this. You're having to go through like 60 degrees of banking full throttle and pretty narrow of a bit there. It's maybe, 2.5 car lengths or something there? So yeah, early in the game it's already testing your skills with it, and that's not necessarily a bad thing because you can just restart and do it again, but the game is challenging. It's not one of those games that, even though it's really arcadey, it's meant for necessarily a 3-year-old or something. Again, to each their own on days like that with that, but I'm alright with that for the most part. The main thing with this game is that because there's very few buttons, you need to be as precise as possible to be as fast as possible. It doesn't necessarily require you to be precise to move on in the game. But, I mean, even just miscellaneous stuff, like this, if you hit a wall, you get loose, which is realistic. There's some events where you can actually hit a wall and somewhat go faster, but then there's some events where you just plain can't. And then even the events where you can hit a wall to go faster, there's a risk there. So that can make for some slight annoyances. And honestly, some also slight annoyances is the background person. I don't even really know what to call it. It's sort of, I guess the best comparison would be like a spotter in NASCAR, but really it's just background noise that's honestly kind of annoying. And also, some of the times it's just straight up wrong, too. Like, here's an example that relates to NASCAR again. If for any of y'all who played NASCAR 2011, or I think it might have just been called like NASCAR the Game or something, which is by the same developers as Ride to Hell Retribution, one of the worst games ever, well, that spotter basically was wrong a whole heck of a heap of times. This in-game person talking to you is also wrong a whole heck of a heap of times. Some examples being, there's some turns where the person, I don't even really think it's meant to be a spotter because you're the only car on track for some of these things, says keep full throttle or something like that, keep on the gas, and then there's some turns where you say that, and then you just plain can't. You're not even really supposed to listen to that person quite a bit. And also in terms of like in the race scenes and stuff, like this is just improving my time. I already got the gold medal. There actually is a Trackmaster thing, which is basically like platinum medal or whatever, like the max you could possibly get. As far as I know, though, the only like real requirement per thing is like gold. At the beginning, it's actually just bronze and it moves up. I think gold is as high as it gets of what's required. Even after getting the gold medal, unless you beat your own time, it words it in kind of a negative and not a way that makes you want to continue to play the game way. Like, you need to go faster, and try again is kind of iffy. When you have gold, maybe not. You don't actually have to. But the you need to go faster is, I don't know. For being an arcade game and about fun, that background person is annoying. And the whatever this is called in screen is kind of annoying too. So that's really about the only overall nitpick of the game is just the parameters of it is kind of weird. For what's meant to, as far as I can tell, just be a fun arcade game that's not meant to be taken all that seriously. They make it sound like you have to be pretty much perfect or they're gonna yell at you. And also, which leads me to another thing. This game, even though it's accurate in the sense of, I mean, the more precise you drive, the less steering motion, the closer to the apex you get, the faster you go. It's not really built to do that very good. And here's a pretty good example of that. I'll try to get it to an exact point here, which is relatively hard because I'm just doing this on a controller. That's pretty good there, I guess. It's not perfect. My rear rails are already in the air, but this is just one of an example. If I only had about playing 4 hours, I've had probably 6 or 7 instances of is the hitboxes in this game are honestly pretty off from what I can tell. And from what I've seen online, for really good players, you can get really caught picking precise and getting through really narrow gaps going really fast once you really get through the game. Obviously, then you're just trained to know what the hitboxes, but the hitboxes aren't what you think there is. You can make a jump by an inch, but there's 2 inches of hitbox there, like this. I was going full throttle on that jump and I didn't make it. The game's not the best with precision, even though it sort of kind of needs it. So, again, just learn the hitboxes per track. It's not that big of a deal, but they're far from perfect, so don't get too mad if you mess up on something it looks like you made. Because it's looking like that's sort of kind of an everybody type thing. In my final review, I have like the game plays, like the actual physics and stuff of it. Is even though the hitboxes aren't the best, the actual way in which the cars handle is somewhat realistic in an arcade game. In most arcade games, you get like nitro boost or whatever from drifting, or you just straight up go faster. It helps you in some way, shape, or form. And this pretty much, if you tap the brakes, you do drift, but actually, in a lot of times, drifting is slower. Like in this, I'm just full out drift to the final turn. And I'm full throttle, but I'm also drifting, and I just downright get beat by the ghost, which is actually, for in this case, only for silver. So that's something, again, to each your own on that. It can just kind of depend on the person, but an arcade game that doesn't actually prioritize drifting, you're actually pretty much supposed to keep the car straight. You do have to hit the brakes in more turns than not, but you actually pretty much want to keep it. If you keep it steady, most times it usually doesn't drift, which in a way is realistic. Little steering motions plus not that much brakes equals you won't drift and then you carry more speed. Realistic in that sense. Every other way, it's pretty arcadey. The bouncing off the walls and stuff makes your car go flying up. The water's like halfway, like jello or something, and it makes you bounce, and I don't know how to really explain it. It's arcadey in all the ways that it needs to be, but it's simulatory in some ways that it really doesn't. But I it's free for now, so it's not bad. Overall, I'd give the physics maybe about a 6 or 7 out of 10, and I'd give the way it feels or whatever, like how the atmosphere is about that too. It's alright. It's one of those games that's addictive because there's like leaderboards and stuff. And there's a whole heck of a heap to do. It does look good and it makes for some big crashes. So in that aspect, it's probably about a 9 out of 10 in terms of like replayability and stuff. Because you can crash your car in many a different way. And then you can just test this not great physics in many a different way too. And see if you can get lucky in some stuff. Which there will be a future video on that. Already. I'll probably continue doing videos on this game just because it's free. Why not? I may as well play it. I already downloaded it. It's not the greatest game out there, but it's fine for a free game. It's sort of like Rocket League in the sense of it's addictive, but Rocket League is much better at what it does. It's kind of the only thing what it does. It's still, I think, the only car soccer game that's a full game. There's many arcade racer type things out there with that play sort of like this, but it's free, so whatever. Trackmania Turbo is a fine game that can be annoying at times, but it's far from the worst thing out there, and it's one of the better free things out there for now. So I do recommend downloading it. I guess all in all, this game's perfect yeehaw. It's free, and I got content out of it, so yeah, sure. Yeehaw. And there will be a video coming pretty quickly. As quickly as I drive in a video, we'll see. Wink wink. Yeehaw.